Welcome to the one and only Team 2.
G'day guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, July 27th, 2026, and here we go again. Seems like we've been spending a lot of time together recently, doesn't it? We've just going to adjust my camera there. There we go. It's a little bit more central. Yeah, well, last week we had this episode, then we had the Wednesday episode, and then we had the Sunday episode. Now here we are back on Monday night. So great to have you along. Oh, let's see. Oh, I'll turn that down there. Sorry about that. I've just got the comments up here so I know who's first. It comes up correct on my phone. Yeah, I didn't know how many of you would be around after yesterday's, well, what was it, nearly 2 hours last night. So good to see you're all back. So there's a few in the chat at the moment. And I've got a feeling I know what everyone's going to want to talk about again, the fallout from Tim Tszyu and Errol Spence yesterday. I'm sure there's plenty of other things you want to talk about as well. I hope so. Is that Fury and Joshua? What do we think about that? Give me your thoughts. Were you impressed by Fury or Joshua? Have they actually done themselves more damage by actually fighting rather than just staying out and waiting till maybe September, October, and then fighting? I think that's sort of my thoughts anyway. The Joshua fight, geez, he looks susceptible to punches now, doesn't he? He just doesn't have any punch resistance anymore, does he? To think he got dropped twice by Pringa, I mean, geez. And Fury, well, I always say he never looks impressive. He just does his thing and manages to win fights, and here we are. But what else is going on? The Zuffa today, I watched that this morning. Edgar Berlanga and Richardson Hitchens. I thought Hitchens looked pretty good. Berlanga, yeah, I've never really been that impressed with him. And also the fights over the weekend all around the world. So give me your thoughts. If you haven't been on the show before, it's exactly that. It's Talking Boxing. You decide what topics we discuss. I'll just go through all the comments and give my thoughts. If you are going to have your little conversations in the chat amongst yourselves, just keep it respectful, guys. I know we're all here. We've all got different opinions, and I'm sure tonight we'll divide a few people with Tim Tszyu feedback. But it's all I ask is you be respectful and let people have their say and come back. But just do it in the right way. All right, looks like we've got, is this a new person tonight straight off the bat? Is that your name? Raising Pulses, Raising Hell. I think you spelt raising wrong there, mate, but that's all good if that is the word you're going for. We'll start with you. You got a couple of comments to get us started. Paulo Acuso finally stopped playing with his food and cruising in his fights when he scored a brutal one-punch KO. All the negative Nancy's ate crow as Tszyu delivered the goods. Who's next? I'm assuming that's for Tim. You're right about Paulo Acuso. He was fantastic. The knockout was fantastic. Up until that point, he did struggle. I reckon was it the 8th round, 7th round, whatever it is. I remember just in between rounds, he didn't. He almost looked like he'd had enough, Paulo Acuso, but he dug deep, found that left hand in the whatever round it was. I think it was 7th, 8th, whatever it was, and knocked his opponent out. But yeah, he's got the goods, Paulo Acuso. I'm not so sure he was playing with his food there, mate. I think his opponent had a little bit to do with that, but he can be guilty of cruising. That's for sure. What's that? All the negative Nancy's ate crow as Tim delivered the goods. Who's next for Tim? Well, yeah, there were a lot of negative Nancy's out there, but I said myself, mate, I just reckon there's probably just as many questions after the fight than there was before. And, full credit to Tim Tszyu. Fantastic win. I think we've got to just, no matter what our thoughts are, we just have to look at it and say, well, Tim Tszyu did everything he was supposed to do. He implemented the changes that Jeff Fennick had provided in training camp. Not a massive amount of changes. I think I did see Jeff talk today, and he did say that he spoke to Tim and said, look, one thing we don't want to do is go out there at 100 miles an hour and leave ourselves open, because Tim has been dropped early in fights. And I expected the opposite, if I'm being honest. I thought that Jeff would tell Tim to go out there and get on him straight away, make him fight right from the first bell, put the doubts in his mind after 3 years out of the ring and really go hard at him. But I was surprised he was actually quite patient at the start and actually gained momentum as the fight went on. So I've said it last night, I said it again this morning, I'll say it again tonight. I think Jeff Fennick deserves a hell of a lot of credit for the work he did. Now, I know there's been some people out there say he didn't do that much. He just did this and that. Well, I think regardless of the technique changes, and I did see a few, just the frame of mind and the encouragement that he gave Tim during the fight, throughout the fight, I think was exactly what Tim Tszyu needed. None of this, well, we're 7, 8, 9 rounds in now. Well, just, I suppose, continue the way you are and whatever. No, Tim, keep throwing the right hand, mate. I think he did elaborate too today, Jeff, about why he wasn't throwing the jab. He did say that, in his opinion, the jab against the southpaw is not overly effective. The lead right is more effective, and that makes sense because Tim nailed Errol Spence many, many times with that straight right. So, all props to Tim Tszyu and Jeff Fennick and the entire team. They all did a fantastic job with Tim. What else we got there? Who is the better promoter out of these three grassroots level pro boxing promoters in Australia? Brian Amatruda, Jamie Meyer, Will Tomlinson, or Paul Nassari? Well, they're all good in their own ways. They're raising hell, I'll call you, I suppose. You've got Brian Amatruda, who's probably been around for, I don't know, probably close to 20 years, I suppose. Got the Melbourne Pavilion, custom built for martial arts and boxing and you name it, any combat sports mainly. I know that's really started out as a wedding reception venue, but it's more of a combat sports venue these days. He's extended that as well. I don't think Brian is such a great promoter, bringing the massive big events here and a big time guy, but he's been consistent, just regular fight nights. I don't think he does as many as he used to, but still back in the day, very, very active and when a lot of promoters weren't doing a lot, he was. So he's been a real staple of the Melbourne boxing scene for quite some time. Same with Jamie Meyer. Now, Jamie's promotions, I suppose, and I'm not criticising Jamie, would be more of a budget type of shows, but you need those type of shows. They're all the 4 and 6 rounders type of thing, and he's done a great job. He's been around a long time, Jamie, and does a fantastic job as well. All these guys do. Paul Nassari, the same as Jamie Meyer, just consistently over the years has put on, 6, 7, 8 shows a year and been great. And Will Tomlinson, only been around probably 7 or 8 years. But he would probably be the one, I think, if he had a little bit more backing and a little bit more funding, whatever it might be, or maybe linked up with a No Limit or Tasman or one of those type of promoters, could really do some big things in Australia. I know Will has been frustrated as far as getting TV deals and all this sort of stuff and linking up with those big promoters, but I think he could be the one, if given the opportunity and the resources, could maybe go to another level. But all those guys, mate, have all been fantastic over the journey, and without those type of promoters, boxing in this country will be stuffed. So well done to all those guys. All right, one more there from you, Raising Hell. Out of all the pro boxers you've met, who is the craziest, who is the most passionate, and who is the most annoying? All the boxers I've met, well, I'm not going to say who's the most annoying because they might watch this show unless they're overseas guys. I don't know. It's hard to answer those questions, mate. I suppose all the boxers are crazy in their own way, aren't they? I really couldn't answer that question. I think Joe Camilleri is probably the most sort of wacky type of guy, but he does it. He gets bums on seats. He sells tickets. Really, he's a good businessman as well, Joel. So I won't call him the craziest, but he's probably the most out there is Joel. Just promotes himself so well. Most passionate, I got no idea, man. Most annoying, well, maybe Will Tomlinson if you're looking at that, Will. I'm just joking, mate, all right? All right, what else have we got here? Drew. All right, Drew Keeley, how are you there? Drew, I feel a bit harsh saying this after gaining a significant but faded scalp on his resume, but I just struggle to see Tim winning a world title. A 43-year-old Lara is the best option. Yeah, look, the thing is, I think if you have sort of something maybe constructively criticising or if you criticise Tim constructively, if that's the word, you're sort of labelled as a bit of a hater. And I did actually see Jeff today lash out. Probably not so much by now, although actually I take that back. He did have a real lash out at Billy Dibb, who was a former Jeff Fennick fighter. He probably went a little too far, Billy, I think, a little bit, as far as saying, well, maybe getting a little bit too specific. It's one thing to say you think the other guy's going to win, but I think he went a little bit deeper than what Jeff maybe thought, but I think, or wanted. But I just think there's a big difference between being constructive in your criticism than just being a hater. That's what I think. And I think that's what Jeff was sort of getting at today. Because initially I thought I picked Spence, and you would have seen my preview on the day of the fight. I actually backflipped and went for Tim just because I thought Errol had a lot more questions to answer than Tim did, but with no confidence whatsoever. Now, yeah, I'm not certainly going to, have a crack at anyone that said that Errol Spence would win. But I just think, again, there's a way to go about it without getting personal or getting too into it. I don't see why people aren't allowed to have their opinion. But yeah, there's no dramas with that, mate. I'm with you though. I think I can see Tim winning a title, but it has to be against the right guy. And at middleweight, you could argue that all four. Well, the IBF is getting contested, I think, on August the 8th. McKenna and what's his name, the Italian, they're fighting for that belt. I think all four are very beatable, no matter who wins that IBF belt. I think Lara is probably the more cagey one, and I think he's a very young 43. Hasn't had a lot of wars, hasn't been in any real battles. He hasn't been overly active either. So you wouldn't think he's a real battle-worn type of 43-year-old. Nowhere near as probably shaded as Errol Spence was, even at being 7 years younger. And then you've got Adames, who's more that sort of bully type of guy, that real guy who could really press. And then you've got Bentley, who I think is probably the more beatable out of the three current world champions. So I think it's a great move staying at middleweight. I thought Tim looked good. I've just got a little bit of a query as far as the strength and the punching power of Tim at 160. Even at 154, I don't think he was a massive puncher. I don't think he was overly strong, especially in his last two fights under Pedro Diaz. I think if he's going to stay at 160, they need to make him a bit stronger, maybe focus a bit more on power, because I don't think he's a hard hitter. I know Jeff says he's just as hard a puncher as what his dad Costa was, but I just don't see it. And I just think if he's going to beat, especially a guy like Adames, he needs to be strong in the contest inside. I might get away with it with Lara because it would be fought at a distance, and possibly Bentley as well. But Adames he'd be there to punch on with Tim, and that's probably my worry. So of all those guys, I think Bentley is the one he should currently target. But geez, if the IBF is won by someone like McKenna, I think he's very beatable as well. So we will see, mate. But he's in my opinion made a great move going to 160. All right, Big J, where are you, mate? You're having a crack at me already. What is it? Hang on. Oi. Oh, all right. So that's the first comment. Oi. How dare you insinuate that I'd run from the fight with the chump? I've been besmirched, is it? And I challenge you to a duel. I choose pistols at dawn. By the way, your shirt is on the way. I love your work, mate. Thanks, Big J. Appreciate it, mate. When I get the shirt, if it turns up this week, I'll promise I'll wear it on the show next week. Not really into promoting other people's channel, but I see you more as an ally rather than a competitor, mate. Not that I see anyone really as a competitor. I just do my own thing. But all right, mate. Well, pistols at dawn it is. But I reckon the chump would be pretty hard to beat there, Big J. I reckon he'd have you in fitness. He looks in pretty good condition, the chump. Not so sure he's had maybe as many battles as what you have, but yeah, I reckon he'd maybe have you covered in speed, I reckon, mate. Maybe endurance, but we'll see how we go. All right. Drew. Where are you there, Drew? After the weekend, I give Tim his due credit. That said, Tim beats none of the champs at 154 and a much less talent-stacked 160 division is easily his best option. Yeah, well, I agree, Drew. Look, I haven't really seen a lot of Josh Kelly's fight over the weekend at 154 with the IBF belt. I just saw some highlights, and that was probably about it. I know he got busted up a fair bit. I agree that it should stay right away from... And we're probably talking hypotheticals now, by the way, because he's not going to fight at 154. But I would have stayed right away from Boots Ennis. I think that's just an accident waiting to happen, that fight. I think Tim's style would be custom made for boots, although he did wear a few against Zeus, didn't he? And then the WBC and WBO champ, of course. Just the WBC champ, sorry. Sebastian Fundora. Well, that's not going to happen either. So, yeah, I'm with you, mate. As I said, 160 is definitely the way to go. Back to Big J. All right, Tim showed no real improvement on his fundamentals yesterday. Same one-dimensional fighting as usual. But he got the W. I'm just surprised at how everyone is surprised how washed Spence was. Well, I don't think anyone's surprised. Well, maybe there are some people that are surprised. Big J. I wasn't surprised that Spence was a very, washed version of the fighter that he was. But you got to give Tim his credit. Now, I worried that Spence would turn up this way, and obviously we've all been proved right, the ones that thought that would be the case. But as far as the fundamentals yesterday with the improvement, I think there definitely was. I think we've talked about the jab, and by all accounts, that was by design, not throwing the jab. It was to lead with the right hand instead, and it worked because he tagged Spence numerous times. Didn't see a lot of head movement. That's probably the one criticism I did see. But I like the angles. You see it numerous times throughout the fight. He would pivot around or step around and he'd attack from a different angle. I thought that was great. And he almost nailed Spence big time in the first round. It was almost a Carlos Ocampo moment, just with the opposite hand, wasn't he? When he spun around and threw, I think it was left hook or right, whatever it was, but it was a ripper, attempted a punch anyway, and he just missed. And it could have been all over then. But now I saw some changes. Not wholesale changes, but definitely some changes, and I think it held him in good stead. And I think the main thing was, again, during the whole fight, was that Jeff Fenech was in his head about staying calm, staying composed, sticking to the game plan, don't panic, and if you do what we've been trained to do, the win will come your way. So I think sometimes the corner doesn't get enough credit, but again, Jeff Fenech, he's been getting credit today, which is great, and well deserved. All right, I'll just have a drink here. All right, what's that there, Big J? What's the interview? Hang on. Where is it? I might just have to read it out. Oh, yeah, here you go. Big J. I saw the interview with Peter Bedell and McAllister. Not sure what version of Spence he expected considering all the variables, but he did tip Spence to win. I thought Spence did better than I thought. You thought Spence did better than you thought he would. I'm gathering that's what that means. Yeah, I did see the Peter Bedell interview too, Big J, and Jay, was very busy today. I just watched the Barry Michael one as well. I'm not sure, I'm assuming Jeff Fenech didn't give him an interview. He wasn't really happy with Jay, was he? But yeah, I know Peter cops a bit of flack, and I've given him plenty over the journey, but I thought his assessment of the fight was really good. I liked it. He did admit that he did back Spence to win. He said he looked awful, and he's entitled to his opinion. I really liked Peter's take on it, and yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sure what version of Spence he thought would turn up. I think he thought that even if a 80% version of Spence turned up, he would beat Tim. But I think it was probably only maybe a 55 to 60% version did. But that's not Tim's fault. Tim turned up in great shape and did what he had to do. All right, Drew. I hate taking any credit away from Tim, but Errol looked even more significantly diminished from the version that fought Bud. I'm sorry, but he looked like he was at gatekeeper level. Yeah, well, that's the thing I commented on as well, Drew. I just think right from the word go, he looked unsteady, he looked unstable, he looked unsure about himself. A lot like he looked against Bud, actually, when he fought him. He was just all over the place. Now, we can excuse the Bud one because, I mean, not only did maybe Errol look like he aged overnight, but he had probably the best fighter of this generation really, looking to hurt him, and it showed. Obviously, Tim's win over him wasn't as impressive as Bud's was, but Tim's obviously not at Bud's level either. But he did look like a gatekeeper, mate. He looked a real washed version of himself. But again, that's not Tim's fault. And you can sometimes you're only as good as your opponent. And I think yesterday, while Errol showed that he was nowhere near what he was, I think Tim, he's not the version of him, the best version of himself either. And I thought he did, with the best he could at this stage of his career. Don't forget, he's 31 years of age. So, and again, I also said this morning as well that he's just got to be careful who they match him with, which I've got a feeling is why they put him at 160, because I've got a feeling they maybe don't think he's going to be competitive against those guys at 154. So why bust yourself to get down when you're going to be fighting the likes of Ennis and Fundora and Kelly and Ortiz and these types of guys? All right, Big J. What do you got here? You having a crack at No Limit here, are you? Where is it? All right, there it is. Surely No Limit needs to end the relationship with PBC as a nightmare that PBC fighters bring. No Limit surely can branch out to either international promoters and leave PBC in their wake. Yeah, they have a good relationship with them, Big J. I know. I'm 100% in agreement with you. I did comment, I think yesterday or whatever it was, or the day before, about this, that we had Jamal Charlo pull out against Tim back in, 2023 to fight Canelo. Then we've had the visa issue this week. Then we've had Fulton. So, yeah, I'm with you, mate. And there's probably been a couple other things in there as well. Yeah, I just don't think No Limit are big enough to do that, though, Big J. I know PBC are on the bones of the RAS as far as everything, but they're still a very powerful promotional firm. Without them, this fight just doesn't happen. And access to Charlo and Fulton doesn't happen either. So, not that that mattered in the end, but yeah, I think they need PBC to some extent, because guys like Spence and Charlo and some others are with PBC. So for now, they need to be in cahoots with them. But who knows, maybe down the track they might switch to, a Golden Boy or a Matchroom or someone else and do a bit of business with them as well. Especially here in Australia with Matchroom being here, wouldn't it make sense to work in together? Maybe Matchroom put on a show and No Limit put their fighters on their show and ease a little bit of the workload on themselves, and then vice versa. Matchroom put some of their fighters on No Limit shows to add a little bit more value to the pay-per-views that No Limit put on. So I think it could be a partnership that could work, and it does make sense. Why compete against each other when you can both benefit out of working together? So we will see. All right, hang on. What am I doing? Will I finally? What is that? Will I finally? Oh, is it me or everyone? Will you all finally admit Spence is a blown up, washed up welterweight? Everybody's said it without saying it. No. Well, he fought at welterweight. You are correct there, BJ. But I don't think he was a blown up welterweight. I think he was a 154 pounder who balled himself down to 147. So technically, I suppose, because he's fought at welterweight his entire career, yes, he's a blown up welterweight. But then again, Tim was a blown up 154 pounder, wasn't he? But yes, Big J, we'll give you that, mate. We'll give you that. All right, we've got Glenn Tankard. How are you there, Glenn? I'll just find your comment there, mate. We'll get back on track, I think. All right. Thanks, Glenn. Love your daily show. No worries, mate. Look forward to the 20 minutes of boxing experience. I've read lots of criticism on Tim, but as an Aussie, I don't see it. I just thoroughly enjoy his fights. Well, there you go, Glenn. Fantastic way to look at it. Do we really have to? I know us so-called self-proclaimed experts think we know it all, but maybe be like Glenn and just enjoy the fact that Tim Tszyu won the fight and won it well. So I'm just adjusting my camera here because I'm still a little bit off center. There we go. Enjoy the win for what it is. I mean, we've all spent all day analysing this. Be like Glenn and just say, hey, don't worry about all that sort of stuff. Just enjoy the fact that our Aussie, our man, Tim Tszyu, won the fight. Don't worry about, was his footwork okay, or did he should have thrown more jabs, or Spence was washed, whatever it might be. Just enjoy the fact that Tim Tszyu won. There you go, Big J. Be more like Glenn. Just enjoy the fact that he won the fight. Okay? I know you got to have your content too, Big J. I get it. It's all good. All right, Asbot disagrees. He doesn't see him as washed. Where's your comment there, Asbot? I'll find you. I'm almost at the end of these, by the way. Where are we? All right. I don't believe Tim is washed up. That's a very bad takeaway. I think he's being rebuilt. We will see him peak as a fighter over the next 2 to 3 years. Watch and see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't think he's washed up. I just don't think he's anywhere near the fighter that he was a couple of years ago. That's all. So I don't think he's washed up. I just think he's slightly washed. If that makes sense. Yeah. Errol Spence is washed up, unfortunately. Tim is not. He's got plenty. Well, he's got some in the tank. Will we see him peak as a fighter over the next 2 to 3 years? I don't think so. But maybe. Look, he's 31 now, so look, you might be right. Maybe 32, 33, 34 are his years. I don't know. And with Jeff Fennick having multiple camps, maybe they'll cut him back to fighting twice a year instead of 3. And maybe that will be the secret of keeping his longevity. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be once a year, although I couldn't see that with Tim. He seems to like to fight. So maybe but I'm with you. I don't believe he's washed up. I just think he's slightly washed. That's all. And is he being rebuilt? I think he's been tweaked I don't think he's been rebuilt. I think he's just Jeff knows that at 31 years of age and fighting a certain way for his entire career, he can't just come in and have a 10-week camp and just change things. Even over the next 2 years, I don't think he can do that. But what he can is improve on the things he's already put in place. More comfortable with the angles. Maybe it's when you're inside, adding to the repertoire as far as the punches he throws. But I think Jeff is smart enough, and especially in this fight, he knew that there was no use trying to reinvent the wheel. Just try and add some little things to Tim, improve some things, tidy a few things up, and more about upstairs, and then let's go. And I think that was, the main catalyst for yesterday was his mental state rather than anything that he'd done in training camp, even though there were a few little things he'd done. So, yeah, I'm not so sure he's being rebuilt but I think he's being reloaded almost, you could say, and tweaked. So we will see, mate. But yeah, not a bad take. Drew. Where's your comment there? I might just go to the top here. I'll search it through the comments. I think I've got... Oh, yeah, there's the next one. Yesterday, the one thing that really concerned me about Tim's game plan moving forward was a complete lack of a jab for most of the fight. If he neglects his jab against a champion, it could spell trouble. Yeah, I think they'll just have a horses for courses type of attitude, Drew. And as I said before, Jeff did say today it was a deliberate tactic to not throw the jab. Because if he threw the jab, then you could probably see that Spence was going to come over with maybe a counter right hook or an inside left straight down the middle. Who knows? But that was the plan. So I would think that if they went up and fought, say, Adames, well, of course he's going to need a jab. He's not going to be able to meet Adames head on, I wouldn't have thought, without a jab. If he fights Lara, then you would think that they'd adopt the same plan as they did yesterday and try and throw that right hand straight down the middle. The one thing they're going to have to be really conscious of, though, is that counter left hand that Lara throws, and Michael Zarafa knows all about that. If you get a lazy at all, he's going to come back at you with that left hand. So I would think that would be the plan. They would obviously watch the fight with Zarafa and Garcia and all the other guys he's fought, especially the Zarafa fight, you'd probably think, and say, well, let's not make the mistake of putting out a lazy lead. Let's put out a strong lead and put Lara back on his heels. And I would think they'd probably use yesterday's tactic of that really powerful right hand straight down the middle. So yeah, it's a good point though. Who we got there? Explicit Triple G or Double G, is it? Jai's lawyer Brownstein has worked with the Saudi government before. I hope I've got the right comment here, mate. Anyway, we'll work through them. He's worked with the Saudi government before. Maybe Turkey is involved. Dana said earlier it's Jai's business. Yeah, I did see that. That is such a cop-out. And he knows nothing. Not sure if this is the same lawyer that helps Tico and Zufar. I would think if Turkey's involved, explicit, well, obviously you're going to see the best lawyers that money can buy. I was surprised and disappointed that Dana White would just hang Jai out to dry. To say, oh, it's Jai's business, I don't know anything about it. Oh, come on. He fought on a Zuffa promotion, didn't give up his IBF belt. He was stripped of his IBF belt. Dana has not said a word, hasn't backed him at all. And it was a Zuffa show. Look, maybe he threw the hands in the air and said, I know nothing type of thing. Maybe Dana would say that, well, I just signed him up to fight with Zuffa. The IBF thing had nothing to do with me, which seems to be his sort of language he's using. But that's such a cop-out to say that. I think he worded that really bad. I think he just sort of said, well, Jai's doing that. We'll support Jai, going forward. Instead of just saying, well, it's not my business and don't know anything and change the subject like he did. I didn't like it. It seems to be all about Dana. And that's the only thing I love him as an entrepreneur and what he's done with UFC and what he's now starting to do with boxing. But it's all about Dana. I mean, who holds a full-on press conference after the fight just for himself? Here I am, guys. Let's go. Fire him at me. I know it's good in one way because we get a few answers, but all it seems to me for Dana is 30 to 40 minutes of him just promoting himself, and having a little bit of me time. So, yeah, I was disappointed in that comment explicit. I didn't think it was justified just to shrug your shoulders and say, I got nothing to do with it. So, all right, explicit. I forgot about the Roach Zepeda fight. It's technically fight week already and on TNT. Yeah, I can't wait for that fight. Explicit. I think it's going to be a ripper. Roach and Zepeda. I'm with you. I didn't realize it was this coming week either. So, it'll be on Sunday over here. So I'm assuming it's on DAZN, is it? I'll have a look later. But yeah, great fight. Where it is, yeah, check it out. It should be an awesome fight. I think Roach wins that fight. I think he beats Zepeda. What happened to Turkey announcing something after Joshua's win? Where did it go? I'm with you there, explicit. Where did it go? Turkey did say the other day there was a big announcement coming after the fight. I would have thought they would have maybe spaced out Fury and Joshua's fights maybe within a week of each other. I know different promoters and everything else, but they might have, maybe Turkey would have stepped in and said, well, let's separate you guys by a week. Let's get Tyson on maybe last week. Then he can have the opportunity to fly to the Saudi Arabia, jump in the ring with Joshua, and then we can have the big, here we go, like we've seen so many times before. That seems to be the way I expected Turkey to go, to get both guys in the ring, do the face-off. We almost had it after Tyson Fury's last fight, but Joshua refused to get in the ring, didn't he? So that would make sense. So I don't know how they're going to announce it. The word is it's going to be in America. I hope it's wrong. A lot of sites saying it's going to be the US. I don't see why they would possibly do it over there, but I can't see why, but we all know why. It's still the home of big-time boxing, isn't it? But as long as it's not in Saudi Arabia, I don't care. Have it in Wembley, that's where we all want it. But if they've got to have it somewhere else, do it in the States. Please don't be in Saudi Arabia. I just think that will spoil the whole promotion. It really will. I think people just sort of more go over there just to be part of the big event. And it's a lot of the hobnobs and sponsors and all these associates and all that sort of stuff. And it just has no soul. I hate the Saudi Arabia fights. Let's hope it's either Las Vegas or, better yet, Wembley in London there, mate. Explicit seen that Jai has group chat photos that includes Eddie. I'm talking about Jai suing the IBF. Yeah, well, Eddie's threatened to sue Jai, hasn't he? Because he's been mentioned in the legal document or whatever it is that's been presented. So, yeah, mate, they'd obviously have to be old photos. They're explicit, but I would think that I've got a feeling they'll drop that part of the lawsuit with Eddie Hearn in there. It's got nothing to do with him. He's not Jai's promoter. He doesn't run the IBF or work with the IBF. He just had an opinion like all of us. So I think that'll be eliminated, especially that Eddie wasn't mucking around when he said, get me out of that lawsuit or else my lawyers are gonna get involved. So they don't need that aggravation. So very interesting to see how it's going to turn out, though, explicit, how the IBF are going to treat this. Are they just simply going to float the Constitution out there for everyone to see and say, well, there it is. It clearly says there, if you do this and you do this, then we have the ability to strip you. And unless Tasman fighters and Jai Pataya can produce a document or a text message or an email or whatever the hell it might be to say that the IBF had no problems with Jai fighting for the Zuffa belt and the IBF belt at the same time, I'm not sure they've got a leg to stand on. I think the IBF has, I suppose, the right to do whatever they want. It's their belt. And maybe they say, well, we've just decided that you haven't done what's appropriate for an IBF champion. Maybe bought their organisation into disrepute. I don't know. They might think of something. I'm not so sure that Jai's got a leg to stand on. If I was Jai Patara, I must admit, I'd be saying to the IBF, go screw yourself. I'm going to go get another belt and stick your IBF belt up your ass. I get it. Although I understand also that without a belt, that Jai is sort of naked out in the rain at the moment. He's sort of sitting there by himself with nowhere to go. So he needs that belt to get the fights with Michelini and Benavides. But as I said in my Walking Boxing last week, I think it was, that the WBC apparently are going to support the Garcia and Ben fight and allow them to have the Zuffa belt up for grabs as well. So just on the Garcia and Ben fight too, guys, it looks like I will be going over for that one on September the 12th. So I'll give you more details coming up to that. I'll obviously do my daily vlogs and all that stuff over there. And wasn't quite sure I'd get over there this year, but yeah, I'm thinking about going over, especially if Jai's on the card. I will 100% be there. Do you think maybe I should start talking a little bit more positively about what's going on? And hey, Mick, how about some passes or something over there? We'll see. No, but as I said, I will be there, and if Jai's on there, it'll be great. All right, Zuffa finished a couple of hours ago with a surprise suplex city finisher to Stephen Butler from the ref. I did see that. And you just see that when they went down, but Lunga sort of cocked the fist back and was going to hit him again. So I didn't see that on the live broadcast. I must have missed it, but I saw the replay later. But yeah, I did see that. There's a little bit of a funny finish to it, but a lot of people saying the stoppage was a little bit soon. I mean, the guy was swaying in the breeze. He almost like froze on the spot. No problems with that stoppage at all. He was done. He was done. But I think if he wasn't done, the referee sure as hell made sure he was done, because as he's sort of swaying in the breeze and about to go down, the referee's just grabbed him and dumped him on the canvas. So yeah, if he wasn't done then, he certainly was after that suplex there, mate. That's for sure. What do you think about DAZN signing Devon and Teo with no promoter involved? Well, it's an interesting one, mate. Haven't really seen it before, but in this day and age, I think you're going to see a lot of the fighters maybe a lot more business savvy than what they used to be back in the day. I mean, it used to be you're a pro fighter, you sign with a promoter, you let them do all the hard work. You have a manager and all that sort of stuff, a lawyer, and they do all the work for you, and all you do is train and fight. But these days, with so much money on the line and everything else, a lot of the fighters are becoming very, very business savvy, and they know their brand, they know the business, and I think Devon and Teo probably tick that box. I don't think someone like Shakur Stevenson is probably smart enough for that, but these guys are. And I think you'll see more and more guys. I mean, Canelo, to some extent, did it. I know he had promoters involved, but you go way back to, well, not way back, but you go back to Mayweather and De La Hoya, mainly Mayweather, probably the smartest boxer / business person we've seen. I know you're going to come out, yeah, but he's lost all his money and he's all that. But he was one of the best, Floyd Mayweather. He knew his worth, he knew his brand and what it was worth, and he dictated all the terms. So I think you're going to see that more and more going forward there, explicit, that all the best fighters out there will be being up to speed with what's going on and doing what these guys are doing, and not needing an actual promoter. They're signing up to DAZN. DAZN will then, obviously, they'll deal with promoters and try and hook up different fighters with other different fighters, and I think it's just going to be the way of the future. Explicit, Josh Kelly's cut complicates the Boots fight and Nikita's chances to fight Kelly next. Kelly probably won't fight till early next year. Eddie said the plans were Boots and Kelly after Saturday. Well, yeah, you could say that, but I mean, as far as Nikita goes, explicit, he's got the fight with Ben Marnie next month, so he wouldn't have thought that if they have to sit out until January or February next year, I don't think it would really bother Nikita or Ben for that matter. I mean, it's only 6 months out. I don't think it's a massive thing. Maybe they can have a tune-up fight in the meantime. But I think if it was 5 or 6 months down the track, I don't think that would worry Nikita if he was to win. Yeah, I think the Boots fight, yeah, well, that is the fight, actually, when you think about it, makes the most sense, because both under the Matchroom banner. But I would think, now that you would think that Boots will have a fight before the end of the year against somebody else. And maybe it might be the winner of Marnie and Nikita against Kelly early next year. And then the winner of that then maybe fights Boots after that. Or maybe Fundora comes in the mix. So many fights there. But who would have thought that the zoo that could fight Boots and Ortiz and those types of guys could actually be Nikita, not Tim. So we'll see. He's got to get past Marnie first, though, and that's not going to be easy. I still back him to do it, but Ben Marnie is a very, very tricky customer. One more. Unext. Is that what it's called? Unext, is it? That streams the Japanese cards are now showing Zuffa cards. The first sprinkle in the Japan market. Yeah, well, I've got no doubt as we go along, Zuffa will spread the tentacles far and wide. Dana again said today, he said, judge us after a year. What are we, 7 months in? I still haven't seen that much, mate, explicit as far as being any different to any other promotion. I really don't. And I know they've signed Shakur and these types of guys up now. But, yeah, I don't know. There's been, what have they got, 5 months to go to judge them on a full year in the sport. I still haven't really seen anything different from the first show to today's show. It's no different to just a pro box show or anything, like I've always said. So, I'll get that later. That's Noonan Boy ringing me. I was trying to get him on for Wednesday night. We'll see how we go. The always call him the backbone of Australian boxing media. Noonan Boy goes under the radar, but very, very big player out there. So, sorry, Noonan, you're obviously not watching this show like you should be. I'll give you a call tomorrow, a bit later. All right. That is great about Japan, though, there, mate. I will say this about 160 of those boys are noticeably bigger. I watched a bunch of Lara's clips last night. You're right. Even at 40 plus, he is dangerous. 100% he's dangerous, Asbot. Make no mistake about that. And if Tim gets careless against him, which I don't think he will now. I think yesterday we saw, and I'm not supposed to say we saw Tim, I think that with the way he's going to approach a fight against someone like Arizandi Lara. Cautious, calculated, calm, and looking for that lead right hand down the middle. But I think one thing he will get from Lara that he didn't get yesterday is someone that's pretty sharp and is going to try and counter him with those sharp punches. So, 40, mate, 40 plus, it's definitely dangerous. All right, Ryan, congrats to Tim on his win. Just let me message Noonan back here, guys. I'm sorry to be rude like this and respond, but I have to. He's hard man to get. No, I can't. I can't say what I need to in the space of about 10 seconds. I'll contact him later, and he should be watching this show. Then he'd know what's going on. But I'm going to try and get Noonan Boy on Wednesday night. Congrats to Tim on his win. I can't believe at 31 he looks almost done. I know he has put himself through the ringer, took some beatings, poor management in my opinion. 31 should be your prime. Yeah, it should be. But look, he hasn't had a real beating in a year though, Ryan, and your body can heal. Even your mind can heal. And he pretty much the 2 fights before this, he barely got hit at all. That was really more just a training run. So I can't remember him even getting hit with a decent shot. Then yesterday, he got hit with a couple of okay shots. Certainly didn't see all the shots at the stats. The computer stats had him getting hit. I'm looking at the stats in between rounds saying, am I missing something here? I haven't seen him really get hit at all, let alone, 20 times for the round. So I don't know what they're scoring. That's why I don't take too much interest in the stats. But no, just give him a chance, Ryan. He's only had the one fight with Jeff now. So I think we've got to give him a little bit of time. So we'll see. I don't think he's been managed poorly. I just think he's just been in tough fights and come out on the wrong side of it. 31 in your prime, yeah, it is. Well, someone said before that I think it was Asbot, they said they expect him to about to enter his prime. So I hope you're right. Ryan also says, I couldn't give a hoot about Fury and Joshua. I watched that on YouTube 6 years too late. Yeah, I'm with you, Ryan. And I must admit I was somewhat enthused about the fight, especially if it happened in England. But the fact now, seeing them both over the weekend, I have really not much interest to see. I mean, I'll watch it. No doubt about that, I'll watch it. But yeah, it has lost its luster, if that makes sense, as far as probably, and they've done, as I said before, they've probably done themselves a lot of harm by actually fighting, because I think everyone that watched that fight was thinking, geez, this is the fight we've been waiting for. Is this it? We've waited all these years for this. A guy that has no punch resistance, and the other one looks like some old man, shadow boxing at the pub. I don't know, but anyway, I'm sure still they'll get 100,000 there, though, Ryan, and they'll make $100 million, and here we go. Here we all are. Rick Glaser, he's like an insider guy, said Eddie Hearn has absolutely fallen out of favour with DAZN boxing head honchos. Oh, there you go. I didn't know that, Explicit. So, yep, some inside word there from Explicit there. Well, yeah, fallen out of favour. But I think all that aside, though, he might have fallen out of favour, but Eddie knows he needs DAZN, and DAZN know they need Eddie. They need to protect their interests going forward. And Eddie Hearn is a massive part of it, probably apart from Golden Boy, the second biggest promoter in the sport. So they need him to be part of that. If their model is going to work going forward, they need Eddie under the one umbrella. They don't have to like him or nothing like that, or maybe really like to say he's fallen out with them. They don't need him to sort of be in the groove and part of the gang and everything. They just need his promotion as part of their organisation. And and I think no matter what, I'm sure they'll keep him under the umbrella. All right, Utopia Blue. What do you got there, mate? Thanks for the recap last night of the day's event. No worries, mate. I feel it was a cracker of a day and puts eyes on our up-and-comers like Redder, 50 Cal, and Akuso on a global platform. Yeah, well, that's the thing. And there was a couple of people that commented on my video this morning who, couldn't understand why I said it was actually, I thought it was a good card. I stand by that. And not just the fact that, look at $70. Everyone, no, it's not worth $70. Look what we probably waste $70 on every week on the shit in our lives. Whether it's out on the grog or buying your smokes or out on the piss on a Saturday night, whatever it might be, or whatever. Maybe it's betting, whatever. But for $70, you get a really good day of entertainment, headlined by Tim Tszyu and Errol Spence, which is a really good fight. And on top of that, you've got guys like Paulo Akuso and Callum Peters, especially, that everyone over in the States. I was watching the video with Oscar De La Hoya, and in the background was Akuso, and he's watching Akuso. Who knows what could happen with that? But just a whole set of eyeballs or sets of eyeballs over in the States or wherever the people are watching from, looking at Ahmed Redder, looking at 50 Cal, and looking at Akuso, seeing what we've got. And maybe they might just get a little bit of a fan base over there. The exposure they got yesterday would have been priceless. And to think that Akuso wasn't supposed to be on the card, I think it's great that he's, and people seen that knockout. So, yeah, I still don't understand why people are just having this heart attack about, it's $70. It's okay. Yes, it's only $70 to have a really good day of boxing. 4 hours of I thought a good day of boxing. But anyway, you can't please everybody. Ryan, Tyson Fury looked absolutely garbage on the weekend, and Joshua has no chin whatsoever. 2 spent forces. It's Moses time. Yeah, can you imagine what someone like Moses or Timer would do to someone like Anthony Joshua? I think he'd wipe him out in 1 or 2 rounds. The first big left hand he landed, that would be it. Josh would be knocked out cold. Even Fury, I mean, I think he would struggle with the strength and power and the speed of Moses Otama as well. So, look, maybe it's a Mayweather-Pacquiao situation where both guys are probably on the tail. Well, they are at the tail end of their careers. One massive big payday, although I don't think Mayweather and Pacquiao was anywhere near as washed as these two. And I just think, again, they've done more harm to the promotion than good. PBC have a show September 19th in Las Vegas. Cooper O'Connell, maybe. Yeah, well, I know that he wants to be on that card. Explicit, I know he does, but it's just a matter of if they can fit him on the card and all. And he's obviously in condition. I spoke to Shannon O'Connell last week, and she said that he was in good nick when he left to go over there. So I think they're waiting to see how he turned up. And I think he's only a few kilos overweight, and he's fighting weight and hasn't stopped training. So That's the one. Can you tell us explicit who is on that card though? Because if it's September 19th, if I'm going to go over there for September 12th, Garcia and Ben, I need to know who's on that card because I would probably stay. I'd probably go over late, so I only get there a day or two before the fight, probably 2 days before the fight, and then I'd stay the extra week for that fight there. So can you tell me who is on that card? Well, it doesn't probably matter. There's a fight card in Vegas a week after. I'm going to do the opposite. Instead of staying a week in Vegas and then going home a day after the fight, I'll get there a couple of days before the fight and then stay the week and see that card there. So thanks for that, mate. I've been looking at flights, almost was looking to book them, so maybe I'll have to rethink that. So if you can, let me know who's on there, mate. But that is the card. I thought it was September 12th they were looking after, so maybe that's the card they're looking at instead, September 19th. And maybe they can't get him on the Garcia and Ben card. That would be the card they'll get him on. All right, what do we got there? Okay. Some slight but pleasing changes to Tim's footwork. This is Toby and Tio. How are you there, mate? Holding his shape and not squaring up as much, catching and countering with less of his normal fade off counter. Not easy changing with age. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it too there, mate. Yep, I thought he was a little bit more square on, I thought. Did hold his shape a lot better. Didn't sort of lose his composure when he was under a little bit of pressure. And that was what he said after the fight as well. It was about catching and countering the whole time and staying calm. And yeah, I thought he did that very, very well. I'm not sure about that comment there, Utopia, but I'm sure it'll come out down in the wash of in this chat. 8-0. Hitchens looked flawless today, even with a damaged hand. I think only a matter of time before he picks up a strap at welterweight. How much do you rate him? It's not going to be easy to pick up a strap, though, 8-0. I don't think... Well, I've got a feeling he's going to target Liam again, and Liam Paro. And if I was Liam Paro, unless I really had to, I think, is he rated with the IBF at the moment? I'm assuming he is. That Liam might make him wait. So it was a good win, though, 8-0. I thought he looked really good. At his moments, but I think overall looked really good. I'm just looking at the welterweight rankings here. So, obviously, Paddy Donovan's number one. Richardson Hitchens, not Richard Hitchinson, is ranked number 3, but I'd say he'll go up to number 2 after today. So you would think that Liam's going to have to get past Donovan and then possibly Hitchens. But, yeah, you look at the other belts, so you've got Ramiro and Teofimo Lopez. I would think the winner of that will fight Jack Catterall, so that sort of takes that out of the equation. Garcia and Ben, of course. Haney, while they're talking about him fighting Keyshawn Davis, you would think that maybe Garcia and Ben, the winner of that, would fight Haney, the winner of Haney and Davis. So that title's out of action for a while. So maybe are we going to see Hitchens, Paro too? We will see. But then again, I would think that Liam, he's going to be able to have a voluntary as well. Then he'll have his mandatory. So there's 2 fights before Hitchens comes in the equation. So you might be right. It might be a matter of time there, mate, but we could be 12 to 18 months away, considering what's going on with those belts at the moment. At least 12 months, I would think. So if that's what you mean by a matter of time, then maybe. But I certainly rate him there, mate. I do. And to put Hitchens in that division with the likes of Haney and Garcia and Keyshawn Davis and even Ramiro, Teofimo Lopez, Liam Paro, of course, what a division. I think it is the hottest and most competitive division we have in boxing at the moment. And yes, I know 154 is great, but really you've got Fundora, Ennis, and Ortiz as the big 3. At welterweight, you've probably got 6 or 7 really solid guys who are all going to be in against each other at some stage. So for me, 147 is where it's at, which is amazing to think that not that long ago we didn't have Ramiro, we didn't have Haney, we didn't have Garcia, we didn't have Paro, we didn't have Hitchens, we didn't have Davis. And now all of a sudden, bang, in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, there they are. And it is now the division in boxing, which is great. It's always good to have a healthy welterweight division. We just need the middleweights to step up now because that's always been another really powerful division, and it's probably one of the weakest at the moment. Shadow Boxer, I've started training with Stephen Lavelle. He's also a Commonwealth Games bronze medalist like yourself. You know him? No, I don't, mate. Let us know what games he competed at, mates, because I don't know him. I haven't really had much to do with the amateurs for a long time anyway, mate. But yeah, that's great, mate. And you're obviously in very good hands with him if he's a Commonwealth Games bronze medalist. Yep, Shadow Boxer. Yep, I saw Fennick getting stuck in the dib. Like I said myself, he rarely backs Aussies and even rushes to get selfies with their opponents. Glad he's healthy, but there's odd vibes behind his smile. Yeah, I was surprised. Look, as I said at the start, Shadow Boxer, I have no dramas at all with people going against the Aussies, whether it's in boxing or soccer or cricket, whatever. If you're saying, well, I think the opposition's going to win, and here's why. I just don't like when, they just side with the other opponent just for the sake of it, which is what I think Billy did a little bit here. It's okay for him to say, hey, look, I'm a massive fan of Tim. Obviously, got a great relationship with Jeff. However, I just think Errol Spencer's going to be a little bit too good. I don't think Jeff would have a problem with that at all. He'd say, all right, what's your opinion? That's great. That's fair enough. I think it's the way Billy, sort of his language he used and some of the descriptions he was using. And I think Nadal Hussein's probably in the same boat, skinny. He trained with Jeff as well, and he was pretty critical of Tim the other day. He had a little bit of an online stoush with Tassie Brown. I think won $10,000, by the way, yesterday. So I haven't heard from Tassie today. He normally rings me. I'm sure he will. But, I think Jeff was you could see it grated on him a little bit. He wasn't happy. He wasn't also happy with and I didn't even realise this at the time, but Errol Spence, of course, had the Aboriginal dancers. He said, hey, look, we're the Aussies. Why we got, he understands the Aboriginal thing. He said he's got a lot of Aboriginal friends, but why were they dancing with Errol Spence? They should have been supporting Tim. I think it was obviously to do with Errol being very, supportive of the Aboriginal cause here in Australia. But yeah, Jeff certainly didn't take that well at all, did he? So I just think there's a way to go about it, Shadow Boxer, rather than just being out and out critical and sort of getting stuck into Tim. Have your say, but maybe just be a little bit delicate about it, knowing that someone like Jeff Fennick's going to see it. So. Asbot says, I felt for ages that we simply haven't seen the best of Tim Tszyu. I hope you're right, Asbot. I really do. I'm sorry. Again, taking the last two fights out of it, yesterday was a really good win. I'm sorry. I just don't see how he's going to be the guy winning world titles again. Well, no, I take that back. I can see him winning a world title, but it's got to be the right guy. And I'm so glad he's out of the 154-pound division, because they would have, no doubt, an Ennis or an Ortiz would have said, good name, very beatable. Let's get him for a defense. And all of a sudden, he's back into a world title fight and he gets hurt again. I don't want to see that. That's why I'm glad he's gone to 160. But I'm sorry, I just didn't see the type of improvement and type of performance that's going to get Tim from here to here, where he needs to be. He might be somewhere in between. I'm rapt that he won. I'm rapt he's with Jeff. I'm rapt that he's back. But that doesn't mean to say that he's going to be back to the point where he's going to be capable of winning a world title. Unless it's the right guy again, as I've said 10 times. So, yeah, I think we have seen the best of Tim Tszyu. That's probably where I will disagree. I don't think we've seen a really peak Tim Tszyu since he beat Mendoza. That's the last time I think we've seen a really hungry, slick fighter in Tim Tszyu. And that's where I think that the first Fundora fight would have maybe give him not some doubts, but maybe spooked him, I suppose, with the severity of that fight. That was a tough fight to get through. So maybe there was a little PTSD. Then to compound that, at the time, it was Murtazaliev, and I'll say it again, at the time, everyone thought it was a masterstroke getting a world title fight straight away against Murtazaliev. And don't forget, he was originally slated to fight Virgil Ortiz. And everyone going, oh, geez, wow, okay. Here we go, Timmy's back. And then it was a Murtazaliev fight. I remember people saying it was a masterstroke from No Limit and Glenn Jennings and everyone else. Oh, how good's this? He's got the weakest champion of the division. He's going to have another strap. And away he goes again. We'll just put the Fundora fight behind us, and away he goes. And after the loss, of course, we've been over that 100 times is what happened. But that is the fight for me that I think cracked the foundation of Tim Tszyu really, really badly. Then I think it's the Fundora loss that absolutely shattered everything around Tim's aura, I suppose. The last 3 fights have been great. Yesterday was very encouraging, Asbot. I will admit that. I got nothing from the previous 2 fights, but this fight yesterday, I will agree that maybe. Well, I'm not going to agree that we haven't seen the best of Tim Zua because I'd strongly disagree. But at least now maybe they've just laid the foundation for the next and last phase of Tim Zoo's career. Maybe they've just laid the concrete, and now they're going to start building the frame, and hopefully we can fit it out to a proper house at the end of it. But at the moment, I just see all they've done yesterday is lay that foundation, mate, of what was absolutely shattered before. It was like a cyclone that just demolished the house, and now they've got to start again. That's the way I sort of see it. And it's a long, long way to go, mate, till he's a finished product. And I don't like to disagree with you, but I'm sorry. I think we have 100% seen the best of him. Not to say the current version of Tim can't win a world title. Of course he can at middleweight, but again, he needs to be matched properly. Samuel, Aussie's going okay in the Commonwealth Games, and love Fennick comes today in VB all the way. I haven't seen the Commonwealth Games, mate. As I think I said it yesterday. I forgot it was even on. With so much going on in the last week, there certainly hasn't been a lot of attention on it, or has there? Maybe I just haven't seen it. I'll have to. I'm assuming there's a website for it all. Normally, I'm all over the Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, and all that sort of stuff. But I must admit, I don't even know who's on the Australian team. So this, especially the boxing side of things. I'll do some research, mate, and I'll give some updates on my daily show. You would think where we're at the moment, by the way, with the Commonwealth Games, we should be in the men's winning at least 3 or 4 gold medals. The females probably even more. So again, I hope they're going okay. But from the amount of work and money and everything that's gone into boxing and amateur boxing in the last 30 years or so, we should be in a position now where we're consistently winning 3, 4, if not 5 gold medals. So, Polly the Farmer. Not a fan of Fulton after he made a spectacle of himself in Japan 3 years ago, but to weigh in as a junior welterweight, yeah, for a junior lightweight fight is crazy. He should get a suspension. Yeah, well, what happens, Polly? I mean, can he get a suspension? I'm not sure he can. He hasn't really done anything wrong except miss weight. They could give him an unofficial suspension by simply just saying, well, the promoters should say, well, we're not working with him ever again. You know, PBC could maybe say we're going to rip up his contract for what he's done to their reputation, but I don't think you can actually suspend him. He hasn't, as I said, he hasn't really done anything wrong except miss weight. So it's not like he's tested positive for drugs or anything like that. So I think the promoters should stop wanting him for fights. You know, stops his income. You know, and maybe fighters don't look to fight him or anything like that, and he's just sort of he's blacklisted. That's what he deserves. He really does, because this is not a one-off. This is not him missing weight by 2 pounds and struggling to get it off and falling just short. This is a guy who's done it numerous times, including his last fight, and the WBC and all the wisdom, instead of cancelling the fight or whatever it might have been, they just go, oh, that's okay, you can fight for the lightweight belt instead. Ridiculous. But anyway, that's a different conversation. But yeah, I think he should be blacklisted there, Polly, because he 100% deserves it. Big J. At least Fennick acknowledges that Tim's defense and fundamentals need improvement. That's something I'm certainly looking forward to next fight. Yeah, he'll work on some different things, mate. Don't worry about that. Yep, I've got no doubt he'll improve, but he needs to improve. And again, everything I've said that I suppose that could be deemed as critical, it's got nothing to do with me wanting him to be better. I just don't think he's going to be back to where he was. And you might say he maybe doesn't have to be right back to where he was, but he still has to improve somewhat, I think, to win a world title. Bill Hack. Humans expect too much. Personally, I didn't see shot fighters. I've seen 3-year inactive Spence. Rusty as expected. And Tim, 3 different trainers in 12 months, stuck between styles as expected. Well done, Tim. Yep, not a bad way to look at it, Bill. I don't mind that, mate. Yep, maybe it wasn't a matter of seeing 2 shot fighters. Maybe it was just a really rusty version of Spence. The only thing I'll say with that, though, Bill, is that if that was the case, as you said there, I don't think Spence retires as quickly as he did. I think he was the first one to admit that he was done. Yeah, he was washed. So if he had said, "Oh, look, I was a little bit rusty and just the 3 years out really played a factor, and maybe I'll consider fighting again," the fact that he retired straight after the fight, he knew 100% he was done, mate. So that's probably the only argument I'd have towards that. But with Tim, look, you're probably right, mate. 3 different trainers, 12 months, stuck between styles. Yep, maybe that is the case. But what I'm looking at, I know you can sort of, like you say there, with the 3 different trainers, but that's not what I was looking at. I was looking at him just falling short with his punch, just being a split second too late to pull the trigger. That's what more I was looking at, mate. And you can't blame that on inactivity or ring rust because he's been very active. That's probably my argument against Tim as well, though, mate, is that, I didn't see a guy that was stuck between styles. I saw a guy that just was just a little bit off as far as his speed with his hands and his feet and the timing and range and all that sort of stuff. Numerous times they got tangled up and he just seemed a bit not lethargic, but just a bit of an effort to really do what he wanted to do. So I somewhat agree with what you're saying there, mate. But on the other flip side, there's probably an argument that differs to that. But that's fine. It's good to see another perspective on it. Yeah. Big J. I see that Jeff Fennick got a little bit upset that not all Aussies were supporting Tim in the fight, particularly Billy Dibb. Jeff said Dibb did nothing in boxing. That was a big surprise. I did see that, Big J, as well, that he said, the IBF belt, well, I won't go into that. Well, Jeff was with Billy for some time as a trainer. So, obviously, that's, I think that was, look, I love Jeff, but I think that was maybe a little bit below the belt, excuse the pun. Saying that about Dibb. It's one thing to say he's upset about him not supporting Tim and maybe being a little bit critical of Tim or overly critical of Tim, but to say he did nothing in boxing and almost say that pretty much his belt meant nothing as well. You could see that's where he was going. I just don't think Jeff needed to say that. I think he could have got his point across very, very well without actually sort of getting insults involved with Billy Dibb. So, but I do understand Jeff's frustrations, but again, as I said earlier, there's a massive difference between being overly critical of Tim and simply just predicting that Spence would win. That's all. And I'm one of them. Initially, I thought Spence would win. Obviously, I changed my pick just before the fight, but it wasn't anything critical of Tim. It's just thinking that maybe the version of Errol Spence that we currently have or had might be a little bit too much for Tim. But one thing about Jeff is he always calls a spade, doesn't he? You're not going to die wondering what he thinks of you, that's for sure. What do we got there? Toby and Tio. Honoured to watch Spencer's career and then to see him make the distance and call it a day on his own terms. Watching some of his early performances today, he's given us some tremendous moments. Yeah, he's been a great fighter, Toby. He will go down in the Hall of Fame, 100%. And it's just disappointing that the 2 fights that I suppose we're going to remember more, especially his last one before Tim was Crawford, and yesterday Tim. I mean, he's been a great fighter, Toby, and I know the word gets thrown around loosely, but I suppose you could almost consider Errol Spencer great for what he's done in his career. Maybe it's arguable, but I would consider him a modern day great anyway, I would think. I know he was ripped apart by Crawford, and yesterday he wasn't a great version of himself, but go back to his earlier career and see he was a very, very good champion. So, all right. That's a Big J. Utopia. Jeff Fennick says Tim still has 70% to 100% upside to unlock. What specific adjustments does Tim need to make it to hit that ceiling at 160? Good question, Utopia. What specific adjustments does he need to make? I just think he needs to build on what he started yesterday. I don't think they're going to try and reinvent the wheel again. Now, I think Jeff will just reinforce the whole being patient, think about what you're doing, be calm, be calculated, and that's probably the first thing. Do not get into this mindset of I've got to punch on with guys. You got to know your age, and we've seen that or saw that. We've saw that. Is that the word now? We've seen that in the past. with guys like Mayweather and Pacquiao, well, not so much Pacquiao because he still fights like that these days, but a lot of these guys, like especially like a Mayweather and to some extent maybe a Crawford, they fight to where they are at the stage of their careers. Maybe a little less cautious, not taking as many risks, all that sort of stuff. He has followed them as far as going up in weight to a weight that he's comfortable at. He doesn't have to kill himself to make the weight, which is what Crawford and Spence and Crawford, Mayweather, De La Hoya, Cotto, all those ones have done. And I think Tim's sort of taken a leaf out of that book. But I think it's going to be more about the sidestepping, when you're inside, throw more punches. And I just think as they go on, you'll get a little bit more confidence. So I don't think there'll be a hell of a lot more that Jeff adds Utopia. I just think he'll build on it, reinforce it, and improve it. And I think that's what they're going to do going forward with Tim. I don't think he did a lot wrong yesterday, but there were some things you could sort of tell in areas where maybe he tried a few things and they didn't come off. Or maybe he just didn't hit the spot when he was supposed to. But I think that's what Jeff sort of means when he talks about the 70%, because he's just going to build on what they put in place yesterday. Callum Peters, what is best for him in his development to see him reach his full potential in the future? Does he need a world-class trainer now? What are your thoughts? Well, we'll see as far as the trainer goes. Obviously, his trainer at the moment is doing a great job, but no, I don't think so. Not at the moment. I think we need to see him in with obviously a world-class opponent, Ada. That's probably the main thing. What's the question? What is best for him in his development? I think he's got to get out of Australia. I think Ado. He's got to get overseas into some of the gyms over there. Start going to those big gyms in New York and LA and Vegas and those types of places, Florida, and really start ripping in. That's what I would suggest. I don't think he would be getting as best sparring as he could get over here in Australia. And that's probably one thing he could do in between fights. Maybe get over there and do a 3-week stint over there where he just goes over there and spars and comes back. I know he needs sponsors and all that for that as well, but I think that's what he needs. He needs to be exposed to that real, that sort of lifestyle over in the States. Maybe England's another one he could go to as well, but that's what I think what he needs. He's got all the ability in the world, but to reach his full potential, you got to expose yourself to the elements of professional boxing. It's a nasty, down in the gutter type of business, and you maybe got to get out of the comforts of Australia and get over there and experience it. No better than probably America, but as I said, England would probably be as good as well. So the trainer thing, I think it's something that maybe we'll assess as he goes. I think if he keeps fighting the way he is at the moment, then yes, I would think so. But maybe at the moment, just they're trying just to get rounds into him, up the quality of opponents he's in with, and also maybe tweaking a few things. But I must admit that's one thing I haven't seen yet, and he had 8 fights or something now. Is he hasn't changed from this just straight ahead approach. I'm just coming at you. I'm just going to keep throwing punches until you go down, because that's not going to cut it at the top level. So if he has got a good trainer, then we'll see some improvement in that area. If we see another 3, 4, maybe 5 fights and he hasn't changed and he starts to really step up, then I would definitely suggest maybe a world-class trainer. So we'll see. Maybe he could go to someone like Jeff as well. All right, Utopia. All right, to clarify your point, last night, after a 3-year layoff, was switching to Ronnie Shields and leaving Derek James, his trainer since the amateurs, the ultimate Achilles heel in Spencer's camp? Good question. I mean, maybe the whole leaving your life, or your career-long trainer in Derek James to go to a brand new trainer in, such a massive fight over here against a world-class fighter in Tim Tszyu, an active and world-class fighter in Tim Tszyu, then maybe in hindsight, maybe it was a wrong decision. But who knows what was going on with Derek James, though, Utopia? That's the thing. Maybe there's a little bit of beef between the two. Maybe Errol just felt like he needed a change and needed a different voice, and maybe Derek James was demanding too much as far as money. You just don't know. In hindsight, I don't think it was a major factor. Although I don't think Ronnie Shields offered a lot during the fight anyway, as far as changing things up, changing tactics, and the instructions he was giving in between rounds. And I don't think Errol seemed too stressed about the whole thing either. I just think we put it down to no matter what, I reckon, mate. I reckon Spence he just hasn't got it anymore. And I think even with Derek James in the corner, I'm not sure it would have made a lot of difference. But you make a good point. Obviously, it didn't help by having someone new in his corner. But yeah, he didn't really say anything about that afterwards, and he hasn't insinuated that. So yeah, I don't think it was a major issue. I'll tell you what, though. I mean, I'm sure Ronnie Shields is great in camp, but again, I saw nothing yesterday. I mean, that would make me think he's the great trainer they say he is. I mean, obviously he's a great trainer, in the gym, but there's more to this than just being a good trainer in the gym. You need to be able to do what Jeff Fennick did yesterday and keep your guy on the straight and narrow, reinforce things, change tactics, all that sort of stuff. And I just saw none of that from Ronnie Shields yesterday. All right, Bill. Best I've seen Tim fight since Hogan back to angles and defence, and after confidence of this win and another camp with Jeff, we could see the best Tim ever. Maybe deserves a tune-up next to help build. Yeah, I've got a feeling the days of just the tune-ups might be coming to an end with Tim, Bill. I just think at 31 years of age, to fight every sort of 4 or 5 months, it's a hell of a a plan, I suppose, a career plan, because it's not just the fights, it's the camps. Most of these times they're 10 to 12 week camps. So you're pretty much always in camp. You're in camp, you have maybe a couple of weeks off, and then you're into another camp. So it's pretty hard to do that even at 31 years of age. So I'll reiterate, I don't agree that we haven't seen the best Tim, and we're going to see the best Tim ever. But yeah, I just think it's just got to keep building on what they've shown so far, and that's the best they can do. And let's hope it's good enough. BJ, Dib looks at things through a boxer's eyes, not an Aussie fan's eyes. That's just because a fighter's Australian doesn't mean we'll think they'll win. Back the Aussie always, but unbiased opinion is always the best. Yeah, I think, as I said, BJ, I just think Jeff had an issue just with the tone and the language that Billy was using, I think. I don't think he would have had a problem if Billy had just said, look, this is the way I see it, and been real analytical about it. And he was to some extent analytical, but I just don't think Jeff liked the tone. I don't think. And you're right. You don't have to back the Aussie just because, you don't have to pick the Aussie to win just because he's Aussie. But yeah, I just don't think that Jeff was too enthused about the way he was speaking. So sweet as Floyd Masson versus David Nyika in Auckland next weekend. IBF Cruiserweight Eliminator. Can't wait for this one. Go Floyd and Team BOD. Your thoughts? I'm backing Floyd Masson too, sweet as. I'm a big fan of Floyd. I like David Nyika as well. This is going to be such an even and tough fight. I'm going to back Floyd Masson to win. I think that Nyika will have a lot of success probably the first half of the fight. Then I think Floyd Masson, if he keeps the work rate up, I reckon he can break Nyika down, maybe even a possible late round stoppage. But I think Floyd Masson can and will win. I'm just not so sure that Nyika will be able to go with Masson for the full, was it 12 rounds, I'm assuming, or even if it's 10 rounds. Shadow boxer Hitchens really is a very good, skillful boxer. Props to Paro taking him to a split decision. Yeah. And it shows what a good fighter Hitchens is as well, doesn't it? That Liam Paro, who's rebounded to win a world title in a second division, that he was able to get over Liam. And who knows, again, as I said, maybe they'll duke it out again down the track. Ryan, big ups to Danny Green. I thought he did an outstanding job all week leading up to the fight. Great insight. Yeah, he was. And you talk about giving insights through a boxer's eyes. Well, you're not going to get anyone better than that than Danny Green. I really like the way. Look, it's great to have the likes of Peter Bedell on there, who's a great special comments. Well, not special comments, but just as the commentator. And you've got Megan Barnard, who's obviously really good as a host, but then you throw in, you got Paulie Malignaggi and Sean Porter, then you throw in someone like Danny Green for all the boxing insights. I thought all three of them were great, but yeah, especially Danny, especially from an Aussie point of view, I suppose. He's very good at what he does, Danny, and I think that maybe they should use him a lot more often, because I think he's very good behind the microphone. All the Aussies relate to him, they all love him, and better than anything, he did an outstanding job in all the events, so... Drew, I actually liked the classy way Spence conducted his post-fight in-ring interview. Tim, not so much. I thought Tim was okay. The whole "what's my name" thing doesn't suit Tim's personality. Tim should be Tim. Yeah, you're probably right with that one. Tim should be Tim. No, I thought Tim was pretty respectful though, Drew. You're right about what's my name sort of thing. We've been through that whole thing, haven't we? But yeah, well, one thing I agree, Spence was unbelievable in the ring and then post fight in the press conference. But I thought Tim was okay. I thought he was a lot more respectful, I suppose, than he has been in the past. Sorry, Billy Dibb got exposed. He came off like he couldn't wait for Tim to lose. A 50% Spence beats Zoo, sure, Billy. Well, that's, good point, Asbot. And that's probably another thing that really got up Jeff's nose is that, you would really think that of my fighter, that a 50% version of Spence beats my guy. So, that's a good point, Asbot. And I can see why Jeff was not happy about that as well. Yep. Yeah, he could have just gone about it a whole different way. He could have taken the Big J approach like he did, or he could have probably taken the way I would probably talk about it and say, hey, look, we love Tim, full respect to him, but this is Errol Spence he's coming up against, even maybe an Errol Spence version that's not quite what he was years ago. I still think he might have the edge over Tim. That's all he had to say. Probably Peter Badal said exactly the same thing. And again, I don't think Jeff would have had too much of an issue with it. But to say, 50% Spence beats Zoo, I can see why Jeff got pretty pissed off. Again, I don't think he should have brought in the belt situation or his career or anything like that. But should have just said that he was really disappointed in Billy and would expect a lot more from an Aussie boxing great. So that's all he had to say. Tony, Stephen Pios should be recognised for a fantastic job. It can't be easy to do what he does, but he makes it look easy. He loves Stephen Pios, Tony. I think he does an awesome job. The only thing I think he does watch his show occasionally. So, Steve, I love you, mate. I think you do an awesome job. I think you're the one of the best in Australia we've got at the moment. But if I hear "let's make some noise" again, I think it's going to be forever etched in my mind. I know this is the ring announcer way. Let's make some noise, but let's maybe limit it to 6 times per fight if you can. I'm just joking, mate. Just you keep going ahead. But the amount of times I heard "let's make some noise," I know you got to do your job and get everyone up and about there, Stephen. But yeah, just 6 times a fight is enough. All right. Paulie Malignaggi sounds like he's on his 12th long black coffee. He does, doesn't he, Richard? He talks 100 miles an hour, doesn't he? And he's got sort of the American Italian sort of accent in there as well. And yeah, I just love Paulie Malignaggi. I think he does such a great job. So good at his analysis, but the way he puts it across, he says it the way it is. He doesn't sugarcoat things. And Sean Porter. Look, I think out of all of them, I think Sean Porter might have been the weak link, or the weaker link. Not to say he was a weak link. I think he was great. But I think out of all of them, I think Sean Porter was the one that I'd want him to sort of raise his game just a little bit. I thought Paulie Malignaggi and Danny Green were really great, or the two front runners. And I thought Sean sometimes didn't add enough to the conversation. He sort of went along with it and didn't really have much to add to what Danny and Paulie were talking about, and even Peter Badal as well. So that was probably the only. But I love Sean Porter as well. I think as a team they make a very, very good set, I suppose. And all 5 of them, Megan, Peter, and the 3 boxers, I thought were fantastic. I still think there could have been a bit of a role for Jonathan Brown though. Not as far as special comments in that go, but maybe just get around the audience and interview a few, or maybe do some interviews out the back or something. But I think there should have been a role for Jonathan Brown. All right, Furian Survivor. What do you got there, mate? Do you think Spence was just a little faded or completely shot? I hate to say it, but I think Spence was shot. He had very poor balance and looked 1 step behind for the entire fight. I 100% agree with your last comment there, mate. He had very poor balance and looked 1 step behind for the entire fight. Yep, that's what I've said myself. Was he a little faded or completely shot? Can we say he was very much faded? Not a little faded, very much faded. Was he completely shot? I don't think completely shot, but a long way down the track to being shot. Maybe if if 1 to 100 is completely shot, I reckon Errol was about 75% shot. That's the version we got yesterday. Well, maybe that's being a little unkind to Errol, but I mean, just go back and look at a lot of his earlier fights. Not trying to take anything away from Tim, because we had a slightly faded Tim as well. So, we had to take that into account. But, yeah, Errol Spence, not the fighter that he was, mate. But, again, you can only beat who they put in front of you. And we only had one bad performance to judge Errol Spence on, and that was a Crawford fight. I know it was his last fight, and you're only as good as your last fight. But before that, he was doing some very, very good things, Errol Spence. So we only had that one fight to sort of go by, and Terence Crawford is such a great fighter that he could have done that to anybody. Look, he beat Canelo last year as well. So I think we can't take too much away from Tim, but yeah, he was more than a little faded, but he wasn't completely shot, if that makes sense. Team Batman Boxing. Yes, really happy for Tim and Australian boxing as a whole. That was a huge win. Thanks, Batman. All right. Heyo Matteo. Still lukewarm response to Tim's win by Aussie greats and social media gurus. Okay, I must admit I had to work again today, so I haven't had a lot of chance to look at everything that's out there today. I've just seen a lot of Jay McAllister's stuff. Who else did I see? The Raw Sports interview, a little bit of that with Jeff. Look, I don't want to be critical of other YouTubers, but I just struggle to watch the Raw Sports one, just the way he sort of talks about it. And look, good luck to him. He's obviously doing very, very well. But I can only watch so much of, is it Ahmed? Good luck to him as well. But he needs to do something about his mic, by the way, because it doesn't sound like it's turned on. It sounds like he's in a room. But he seems to get all the big interviews, and that's great. But I probably like the Punch podcast one a little bit better. I thought he asked sort of slightly better questions. I don't know the guy that does the Punch podcast, but I thought he was good. Good to see him up there supporting the event, and rather than doing podcasts, it's actually out there with the microphone as well. So the more the merrier for that, the more content's great. But I didn't see the other Aussie greats there. Matteo, let me know who you're talking about there, because I didn't see a lot of it. I saw the Jeff Horn one, and Jeff obviously is always respectful to everyone. So I'm so happy for Tim. The pressure must have been huge. Yep, that's the one thing we don't take into account either, Furian. It was must have been the weight of the world on his shoulders, because if he didn't win, that was it for Tim. Curtains. Matteo, the Mundine crew looked miserable after the win. Yeah, they didn't look overly thrilled with the whole thing, did they? Because, look, you would have thought that if Spence had beaten Tim, then Anthony Mundine would have been all over the Jeff Fennick comments, would have been, "See, I told you so," and all the rest of it. And, of course, him being Aboriginal was in Spence's corner. But, yeah, they didn't look overly happy, did they? Went to the Crawford meet and greet. Shout out to Tom, who I met in line. We both tuned into your show. Religiously. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. Sat next to Chelsea Maloney, who let us hold the belt. She praised you heavily, Lyndon. Yeah, look, she's awesome, Chelsea. Yeah, I've always had a great relationship with Chelsea. I've known her for, I don't know, about 10 years or 11, probably longer actually, 11 or 12 years. Obviously the wife of Andrew Maloney, and yeah, and I'm not sure where the little tacker's there, Jay Beebs. So a little Lee. But, yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, yeah, got total respect for the Maloney family, Jay Beebs, and that's Jason's side of the family as well. And you did luck out sitting next to it, didn't you? Getting to hold the belt and everything. All right, Richard, the ref for the Akuso fight is copying it a bit for counting, while it was obvious that Tejada was out cold. He gave him a chance and quickly did first aid on him if you watch it back. Yeah, look, I did think that the same way, Richard. When he hit the deck, I thought, well, he's not moving. So maybe, look, what did he actually count up to? I must admit, I didn't really take any notice. I was probably sort of too involved in the whole thing. But, yeah, you're right. As soon as he realised that, maybe the eyes weren't sort of moving much, or maybe they're looking at the ceiling or something like that, he did the first aid. So, yeah, I have no dramas with the ref. They do the best they can, Richard. We can't get it right every single time. We've seen every weekend with football and everything else. It's hard. And referees, they're only human. They're the same as everyone else. And maybe the instinctive thing was to start counting, and then he realised he wasn't moving. So he did what he was supposed to do with the first aid. And, Yeah, I got no dramas with the ref. Billy Dibb. Oh, hate that. You hate that fake man, I'll say. So many stories, but he's an evil man behind that turkey tooth job. Yeah, I can't comment on that, mate, because I don't know Billy. I have met him a couple of times, but I don't know him well enough to comment on that, mate. But yeah, I think in retrospect, it's not the first time either. By the way, he got stuck right in the Michael as a Rafa. I think it was people seemed to be okay with it when he got stuck into Michael, but not so much with Tim. I know different circumstances, but yeah, he has rubbed a few people up the wrong way. No mistake about that. Drew, Fury versus AJ is a perfect example of greed, money, ego, and boxing politics completely hanging a turd on a once elite fight. Several years later, we have a fourth-rate version of two damaged goods fighters. Yeah, I can't argue with that, Drew. And again, I'll say it. I just think they've actually damaged the fight by their fights on the weekend. Before the weekend, I was really looking forward to the fight. I thought, okay, it's coming 5, 6, 7 years too late, but hey, at least we've got it. Like Mayweather and Pacquiao came around eventually, but after the weekend, I mean, Fury looked like he was 50 years old, and Joshua just looked like he was just a shell of himself. And Pringle, with all due respect to him, I mean, let's just say he's not going to be pushing for a world title shot anytime soon. And he's really struggled against him. So, and just no punch resistance. As I said before, can you imagine what a Moses Otama would do to him? Holy shit. Let's look, all that aside, though, I think the fight between them will be very entertaining and inside and outside the ring, and the build-up will be great. And I'm sure they're at a similar level to each other, so I'm sure it'll be a good fight. But I must admit now, it's like, yeah, whatever. Okay. All right, whatever. I'll watch it, but not sort of counting the days as what we should be doing with a fight of that magnitude. Roll. That fight was a money fight. Spence looked like an 80-year-old, and Tim wasn't any different. No movement. If Tim fights anyone good, he's dumb. Yep, not a bad call either. Roll. I'm very interested. This is Matthew. Very interested in how much all the fighters went on the night. Do you have a ballpark figure? Is that dollar wise, Matthew? I'm assuming. The word is that Spence was paid, I think, 6, which means Tim would have been at least 3 or 4, I would have thought. And you might think, well, hang on, it was here. Tim should have got paid more. But I think actually it was a $10 million fight, wasn't it? So Tim probably got 4 US, I would probably think. And Errol being still the A side, he would have got the 6. And that's probably what it would have taken to get him here all the way out to Australia. I'm not sure with the other fights, mate. I can't comment because, you know, it could be what I think they should have been paid, but you don't know what they were paid because being such a big card, there might have been a bit of a tax put on them as far as being on such a big show. Maybe there's a contract thing with the likes of Cullen Peters and Paulo Alcuso of what they sort of earn as they go up the rankings and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty hard to comment about that, mate. But I'm assuming being on such a big card, they would have got paid very, very well. Tommy B, how are you, Tommy? Tassie's event was fantastic. Met another watcher of the show. This is the one you're talking about then. Justin, we ended up sitting next to Chelsea Maloney. They told us heaps about the boys' journey, and Andrew showed us his belt. Great night. Yeah, good stuff, Tommy. Yeah, well, I promoted them for, I think it was 9 or 10 fights, the boys. And the last fight with them was in 2018. And actually, the last fight I promoted of Andrew was on the Tim Zoo undercard that we had in Bendigo. So it's hard to believe that's been 8 years since then. But still have a great relationship with the boys. And as I said, always Chelsea as well. And also Georgia, Jason's partner as well. So Shadowboxer, I see Tassie cop a lot of hate on Instagram. Seems to have pissed off a lot of folks over the years. Some pretty bad accusations thrown at him. Yeah, I don't know much about that, Shadowboxer. Yeah, okay, I wasn't aware of that. A lot of hate. I would have thought that if anything, look, I know, and I would say this to Tassie if he was here. I know Tassie's the type of guy, you sort of take him or you leave him. I get that. I mean, you talk about hard on the sleeve stuff. That is Tassie Brown. You talk about Jeff Fennick. Well, I think Tassie is even more passionate than what Jeff Fennick is. But that's Tassie. And I know that might rub a few people up the wrong way, but that's just who he is. And he's a very loyal guy. He'll give you his heart and soul. But yes, he can be a handful. But I'm not sure why you'd be copying a lot of hate. I'm not sure of the accusations. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that, mate. And seems to have pissed a lot of folks off over the years. Well, as I said, he's the type of guy where you probably love him or you hate him. Well, hate's a bad word, but you either love him or you don't love him. Either way, but yeah, I'm not sure the accusations that they're throwing around there, mate, and the hate on Instagram, I don't know. How was the show, by the way? I must admit I haven't seen a lot of the social media stuff over the weekend. Let me know how it went. Were all the big dogs there from Australia and overseas? Let us know. I think Spence is more neurologically damaged than what's been said even before the Crawford fight. Yeah, I had my doubts as well. 94 Zol, is that your name there? I don't know. In the lead up to the fight, though, I thought he was okay. I thought he was okay. I know we've got to take into account the accent and everything like that, but yeah, I don't know, mate. I suppose we're all just speculating, aren't we? Shadow Boxer, if you look at Lara's box rec, his last few fights tell me that Tim isn't completely out of his depth against Lara at this stage of their careers. That's a good point, Shadow Boxer, because one thing, while we all talk about what a very, very good boxer Lara is, we don't look at the level of opposition. Now, I know over here, it's, we knocked out Zarafa, but I can tell you that internationally, it's who? I have no idea who Michael Zarafa is, and even the ones in the know argue that he should not even be ranked anywhere near a top 10 in the world, let alone a number one challenger that he was for the WBA. So, and if you take Michael aside, the opposition, the Danny Garcia, talk about a washed guy going up from 140 to 147 all the way up to 160 and being inactive. He hasn't fought a lot of really quality guys. So, of course he's in with a chance. Of course he is. Do you think Tim was a real man and beat him with respect? Well, yes, he's a real man, and of course he beat him with respect there. Matthew? Mr. Gentleman, Tim fought the best fight to win, no question. Winning a title against someone in the prime, different question. Yep, again, all Tim could do yesterday was beat the version of Errol Spence that was in front of him, and he did it in style. So I think in this one we move on. We can all argue about whether he's going to win world titles or he's going to do this or he's going to do that. He won the fight yesterday. A big fight, big name, regardless of the status of Spence. And now we move on to the next one. All right, Rayleigh. How are you, Rayleigh? Evening all. I watched the prelims I missed yesterday and enjoyed the Grutch versus Pluto fight. Yeah, Pluto did okay up against the bigger, stronger Grutch. Well, I said, Rayleigh, I actually thought Pluto could arguably have won 3 of the 5 rounds. And then with the knockdown, could have been a draw. No dramas with Grutch getting the win. Obviously, I'm a big fan of his, but I thought it was a really entertaining fight considering that Grutch drove down from Newcastle the night before and Pluto flew up from Canberra. Great effort from both guys. And they put on a great fight as well. Tim's wife often cracks me up. Yesterday, she gave the camera the bird. I didn't see that. There you go. I think Tim will surprise a lot of people if he gets out of his own road. Yeah, I think he'll be fine, mate. Big Batman team, Big J, all day, every day. Geez, Big J, you're getting a few fans on here, mate. What does it deal with McKenna? Isn't he a Zuffa fighter? Yes, good point, Ado. I think he is, but he's ranked number. Is that the fights? He's fighting the Irishman. But I think they're going to allow him to fight for the IBF belt, though, Ado. I don't think it's the Zuffa belt up for grabs, which it surprised me as well. Why would you sign fighters to Zuffa if they're not going to fight for your belt? We've seen it with most of the fighters so far. They've signed these so-called big names, and apart from Jai, none of them have fought for an actual Zuffa belt. So it just doesn't make sense. Maybe the fighters that are coming over don't want to fight for Zuffa belt. I don't know, but why would you go there if you didn't? So that's obviously a silly comment, but I think it's on a Zuffa promotion, but it'll be for the IBF belt. 8-0. That's the way I read it anyway. Thoughts on this quote in a story today. Forget that Spence had been out of the ring for 3 years. He showed little ring rust. He was simply outsmarted and outworked by a hungrier fighter. Nah, sweet. I don't agree with that. I think it's a little bit of all that, to be honest. He'd been out for 3 years. He showed a lot of ring rust, but he was simply, I won't say outsmarted, but he was simply outworked by a hungrier fighter. So that's why I would describe it. A rusty fighter that's been out for 3 years was outworked by a hungrier fighter. There you go. Yep, I'm with you. It's a ridiculous statement. Yep. A little bit of it's true, but not all of it. Vincent, Credit to Tim on a good win, and there was obvious improvement under Fennick, although the fact that Spence looked barely a glimmer of his previous good wins of Porter, Brook, etc. Yeah, but I think we've been over that enough, Vincent. I think, let's just give Tim his credit. He beat the version that was in front of him, and that's all he can do. Tim needs to completely avoid Adames, Janabek, and even Lara at mid-40s. He still has that power. Yeah, I'm not so sure about Lara, but Janabek for sure, and possibly Adames too. Vincent, I will agree with you on that. Ray Lee, Jeff's 2 interviews explain where the improvements were and what they will need to work on moving forward. He mentioned Tim implemented most of what they worked on. Yeah, and that's what I said before, Ray Lee. I just think going forward, they'll just build on those little adjustments they made and just make sure he does them as best as possible. I don't think, again, he's going to try and reinvent the wheel. Just tweak a few things and then keep building on it, working on it until it's all second nature. All right, Sean disagrees. Tim is done. No power, looks sluggish, going up a weight division. Tim could possibly end up with serious head injuries. I won't go that far, Sean. Not going to argue with you saying he's done. Possibly he might be. I agree. The power was a little sluggish, but serious head injuries, I think he's got enough in the tank to go with any of those guys. Look, if he was fighting the likes of Boots and Ortiz and even Fundora again, maybe, but I think I can't really see anyone at middleweight who's really going to do a lot of damage to Tim, even if they beat him. Shadowboxer, anyone know if Fulton gets paid? Was he paid some up front? How does it work? It depends, Shadowboxer. Most of the time it goes into what they call escrow, especially in the States. And him being an American fighter, maybe that's the way they did it, where it goes into an account where no one can touch it. So it goes in there and it's just like a neutral party holding the money, so no one has it in their possession. And that's maybe the way it was. And there would have been conditions that he would have had to meet for that money to be released. So I doubt he got paid. No. Maybe they had to pay a deposit to PBC or something like that. I don't know, but maybe it was refundable. I don't know. But I doubt he would have got any of his money, mate, but you never know. Yep, Vincent, PBC way too important to No Limit, and they need them. Yep, that's what I said earlier. I tend to agree. Did Kostya watch the fight? My word stuff, all from the great man. Not that I saw, Richard. No, I don't know. Normally Tassie, maybe I think he FaceTimes Kostya during the fight sometimes, I think, or someone does it for him anyway. I know Tassie's done it in the past, but yeah, I don't know. Don't know if there was any quotes or anything like that. So it's this whole thing when Jeff was brought on, it was supposed to be Johnny Lewis in there and Kostya was going to be part of it and going to be a family affair. It just ended up Jeff, and I think that's probably for the best anyway. Drew, I can't stand Stephen Fulton. He gave 2-word answers in interviews like a 6-year-old. Yep. Came in horrendously over the weight limit and had a self-entitled attitude like he was bigger than the event. Yeah, I agree with you there, Drew. I thought he handled himself very poorly. I did say the other day that he was bordering on being rude in some of the comments. He was asked a good question by well-intentioned interviewers, including YouTubers and everything else, and as well as the mainstream media. But I thought the 2-word answers, sometimes 1-word answers, he lost a lot of fans. If he did have some over there, he lost them all because it was such just a poor overall performance from Stephen Fulton outside the ring. Paul Panner, how are you, Paul? Jeff said Tim can be 100% better in future fights. I wonder if he would have walked out early at that fight if he wasn't his trainer. Well, good point. I think Zoo peaked around the Ocampo fight. I'm probably thinking the Mendoza fight, Ryan. Ocampo, he didn't beat anyone in Ocampo, mate. That was a shocker. That wasn't a great fight, Ocampo. I wasn't surprised it ended the way it did. But I think the Mendoza fight was where we saw the real peak Tim. And he would have been, 28 years of age then? So you never know. Batman, for me, Tim issues of form was mentally. Jeff was perfect to squash those doubts. Yep, 100% Batman. I think he played a major part in it yesterday. Drew, the biggest sliding doors moment for Tim's career was the first Fundora fight. One bad decision changed his career trajectory. That said, I think people expect more than his talent provides. Depends on how you look at it, Drew. I don't think choosing Fundora was the worst decision, because I think at the time, I think they thought he could beat Fundora, even though he was a completely different fighter to Thurman, and the height and the southpaw stance, all that sort of stuff. But don't forget, Tim did very, very well in the first 2 rounds of that fight. The biggest sliding doors moment of that fight was not pulling him out after the second round, or worst case, the third. The pulling out should have stopped that fight 100%. He would have taken 6 months off, 7 months off, come back. He wouldn't have fought Murtazaliev. He would have defended against somebody else. Maybe they would have done the Fundora rematch. Maybe it would have been Thurman 6 or 7 months later. Who knows? But that was definitely one. Not taking the Fundora fight, I think that Tim would do it again if he was put in that position. Headliner, T-Mobile Arena, you know the drill. First fight, well, second fight in America, but first big fight in America. Headlining T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. You got Rolly Ramiro and Isaac Pitbull Cruz on the undercard. You got Lara on the undercard. I mean, of course, you're going to want to headline your event. You're not going to pull out. So I got no dramas him taking the Fundora fight. And as I said, he did really well for the first 2 rounds. But that bad decision you talk about was not stopping the fight in between rounds, the second or third rounds, and just taking the belt home, licking your wounds, and then going again after that. And then, of course, all that aside, the massive poor decision in hindsight was the Murtazaliev fight. That is the fight for me that I think has pretty much destroyed Tim's peak career. Has it destroyed his whole career? Probably not, because he's where he is now. But I just don't think Tim has been the same since that first. The Murtazaliev fight. I really don't. Take away the cut and all that sort of stuff. It's a cut. Okay, all right. A lot of blood, but it's a cut. Let's not. I don't know how they're going about the PTSD from the cut. Wouldn't have mattered to Tim. Not like the Murtazaliev one where he was absolutely obliterated and pretty much butchered over 3 rounds. That's different. To get a cut, yeah, it would have been hard to get through the fight, but he didn't really take a lot of punishment as such. It was just the blood. So I don't think that would have had a lot of PTSD attached, but the Murtazaliev fight, holy shit, that would have knocked anyone around. So that's the biggest, in hindsight, the biggest sliding doors moment that has, I think, derailed the best 3 or 4 years of Tim Tszyu's career. Shadow Boxer, we should have never let Dana into our sport. He spent decades shitting on the sport and then weasels in and causes all this extra BS. I'm with you, Shadow Boxer. I agree. Super chat from Andy. Hey there, mate. $20. Thank you very much. Salute Lynden Tara in chat. Congrats to all the recent winners, especially Tim over Spence. A win is a win. Well said there, Andy. Tim's dollars might entice a 160-pounder title shot versus old but still dangerous Lara. Smash that like button. Yes, thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate that. I'll try and get back to where we were. Jeez, I've got a few comments to get through, but I'll keep going until we get through them. Where are we? Jeez, I'm way behind, aren't I? Let's have a drink here. All right. Rayleigh. Belunga versus Butler. Butler's legs were like jelly through a few rounds and went down with the ref. Yeah. It's not really funny, but I couldn't believe how long he kept going. Yeah, he hung in there. But at the end of it, he was just sort of frozen in time, wasn't he? And the referee finished him off with a suplex. Eliane, hey mate, just wanted to say your shows and information are fantastic. Thank you, makes my week easier. No worries at all, Ellie. And it's that's really refreshing to hear. I really appreciate that because obviously we put a lot of time into the show and the daily content and always trying to scour all the information to get all the news for you guys. And I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you very much. Combat Oz, not fussed on the Joshua Fury fight. After what I saw last weekend, Otama versus Hrgovic is the best scheduled fight at heavyweight. Yeah, possibly. Yep. Yeah, I argue. I'm not. I must admit, I'm not that enthused by Otama versus Hrgovic either. I'm being honest. I think Hrgovic is ended up going to be a big punching bag for Otama, but he might take him later in the fight and maybe take him a little bit deeper than what he has in the past, and we might have to dig down a little bit. But the Joshua Fury fight is just still good in name and stature. I mean, it's a massive fight, but yeah, there's not really that many good heavyweight fights sort of scheduled at the moment, is there? So, Edgar Belunga or Conor Benn, who do we hate more? Zufik and Havo. I'm with you there, J Beebs. Oh, that's a great question. Conor Benn for me. He's the one I just cannot stand. Naz, evening all, evening Hosco. Yeah, I copped that a bit during the week. Shout out to Peter Bedell. That's me, Hosco. If Tim is really staying at 160, I hope he fights legit middleweight in the prime next rather than Thurman or Charlo, like Bradford or whatever his name is suggested. Bedell, isn't it? Yeah, I don't like the Thurman or even Charlo fights, to be honest. No, Naz. Thurman, yeah. Why would he? I did see George Rose bring his name. I think it was George, or was it Peter Bedell? I can't remember. But Keith Thurman, why would he want to fight Keith Thurman? Although it does, I suppose, make sense. Although he's just fought at 154, I doubt he's going to go up to 160. Although knowing Keith Thurman will try and get a payday and probably call Tim out, but I don't think that fight makes any sense at all. Charlo maybe, but we're talking about another guy that's been out for 3 years. Granted, he didn't cop an absolute shredding like Spence did in his previous fight, but still, I don't know. Can we go? I'm sure there's someone better than either of those guys. Dana is very wishy-washy on his answers to how it's going to work moving forward. He's very evasive, isn't he, Rayleigh? It sounds like Dana working out as he goes. The big dollars will eventually stop, in my opinion. Well, so far, every single show he does, he says, judge us on 1 year. Judge us after 1 year. Well, I haven't seen anything different from the first show to what was today, 8 or 9, whatever it was. I haven't seen anything different. Please enlighten us. What is going to be these big events? I know the Garcia-Ben fight is technically a Zuffa fight, but it's in conjunction with Golden Boy, and they'll probably do the majority of the work anyway. Yeah, I'm still to be convinced, Rayleigh. I'm a fan of Dana in one way, but not a fan in the other. Batman, Alexander, whatever his name is, yep, and Rito Susumi both look really sharp on the AJ card. Is the Russian is a phenom from the amateurs, the craziest pressure fight going around. I had no idea he was a gun amateur, Batman, but geez, he can fight, no doubt about that. And little Susumi, I reckon I saw his debut on the Belunga and Shiraz card last year in New York, and he's an absolute little dynamo. I think he won that in the first round as well on that card. Joe, Nikita's had 12 fights, 13 after Marnie. How many fights would you think he needs to be ready to go against Fundora, Boots, Ortiz? I'm thinking at least 5 or 6 at minimum. Yes, at minimum, Joe. Depends on who the opponents are. Marnie's probably a big step up, and arguably, besides Zarafa, his biggest test, although obviously Zarafa turned out to be a fizzer. Marnie's going to test him in a way that no one has tested him before. He's very, very clever. Marnie, I know he's not a big puncher, but he can fight. If Nikita can get past Ben Marnie, I think that he's ready, not for those guys, but I think he's ready for a step up for someone in the top sort of 12, I would think, definitely. Got to see if he's got it at some stage. What is he, 28 years of age? Got to throw him in there and see if he's going to make it or not. And I think his last few fights have at least shown that he's improved enough technically to at least advance him up to give him an opportunity. So I think after this, you're going to see him not dip his toes in the water. He's already sort of done that sort of with a couple of internationals. And then is the time to jump straight into a top 12 to 15 opponent for sure. Don't want to be a gossip here, but I'm good mates with Brendan Green. Yep, Danny's brother. Yep, we were discussing Nikita. Brendan said he is garbage. I was a little more optimistic. Oh, well, I hope that's not coming from Danny, but I just disagree with that strongly, Ryan. I think Nikita Tszyu is a very, very good fighter. Whether he makes it at world level remains to be seen. My personal opinion is I don't think he gets to that real elite level, but let's give him a go. I think so far he hasn't really done a lot wrong, and I think calling him garbage is a pretty ordinary comment if you ask me. Where are we? Yep, Batman. Eddie is the most active promoter on DAZN. Yep, I love Eddie. I love Oscar. Yeah, in their own way, they're all great. They're all great. Even Frank Warren, I love his sternness and the way he goes about it. He's just a professional type of guy. Bob Arum, of course. I'm wrapped it there with DAZN now. I know he doesn't really have a lot to do with the day-to-day runnings, but Top Rank to me coming up was the promotional firm. So, yeah, I'm glad they're still around and will continue for many years to come. Yeah, good call, Batman. Nikita should take out Thurman. Not a bad call. Samuel, on a different note, loved how Spence spoke after the fight about his walkout music and showed respect. Yeah, he did, mate. That's for sure. Yep, and he's a class act. Tim reminded me of the Mendoza fight. I thought he looked sharp, much better than the two previous, considering the level opponent. Sorry, Batman, I can't agree with that. He looked a lot better than the previous two opponents. I will agree with that, but no, I don't think he was a shadow of the Mendoza fight, mate. Maybe even a shaded or a washed up Spence is a better opponent than Mendoza, which I think is arguable. But I just thought Tim looked a lot sharper and in all aspects against Mendoza than Spence. Totally disagree with what I'm hearing about the Spence Zoo fight. I actually thought it was a great fight the first 4 rounds. Then Zoo hurt Spence and Spence was hurt the rest of the fight. Yeah, that's Adam. Yeah, maybe, mate. Yeah, I didn't think it was a great fight at all. I thought it was a okay fight. Good fight considering where both were at the stage of their careers. But a great fight? No, I've got to probably disagree with that a little bit, mate. I mean, good fight. Maybe even a very good fight. Spence hung in there I just thought he hung in there and did his best. I just thought as the rounds went on, he got more and more gassed. Tim started to pick up the pace, and I just don't think Spence could go with him. Yeah, you're right here, Batman. Tim is the money man at 160. A title is very possible. Yeah, possible. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think he's the biggest name at 160. And one of those champions are going to want to fight him for sure. Once again, that cut was so unlucky and the corner should have stopped it. I know we have said many times, but it's true, so true. Tim did well to not get stopped with that little sight and blood loss. Yeah, in hindsight, what a performance from Tim to get through that fight. Yeah, Adam, yeah, it would be the most famous guy at 160. Yep, I agree. Batman, he already is nobody at 160's guaranteed pay-per-view or mainstream media. Him and Eubank, yeah, not going to go to 160 though, is he? Batman, Eubank would have been good in terms of popularity. The two biggest names, but Eubank moving up. Yep, yeah, I don't think Eubank comes back to 160, but what a fight that would be. Zoo versus Eubank. Wow, it'd be massive as far as the appeal goes, anyway. Adam, the adjustments Tim needs to make. Stop fighting giants. I'm not sure about that one there, Adam. Hearns, I went to Tassie's show on Saturday night. Great night. The who's who of Aussie boxing. Got to meet Bud. Very laid back guy. Highlight was having a mag with Paro. Great guy. He's a really good guy, Liam Paro. Just an average bloke you'd meet in the street, mate. He really is. So glad you had a good night. I'm sure Taz will be happy to hear that. Glenn, glad Tim won, and it was a solid performance. But geez, the size difference played a big part. Every time Spence got on the front foot where he liked to do his work, he got bullied. Bullied off. Yeah, maybe. I thought at the weigh-in he definitely looked bigger, but apparently on fight night, Tim weighed 81 kilos, so he's put on 9 kilos. That's a good effort. I reckon Spence would have been around 80. I reckon. That's a lot of weight to put on. You don't realise how much these guys lose. To weigh in at 72.5, I think it was, and then to weigh in at 81 kilos. That's a lot of weight. Adam, I thought Tim was just a better fighter than Spence. Spence started out throwing with a lot of pop. Don't think people know what they're watching anymore. Maybe, yeah. Ryan, I think Tim's best round was the 12th. I agree. Used his jab and picked his shots. Wasn't a one-sided round as such. Just looked cleaner with his shots. Yeah, I don't think he did anything out of the ordinary, Ryan. I just think that Errol was just completely exhausted and Tim just put the pressure on and won the round purely by putting the pressure on Errol. I don't think he landed any great punches or combinations. I think he just bullied Errol for the round and did enough to win. Didn't end up meaning he won the fight. I think he obviously had it won before that, but good way to finish off and put the cherry on top anyway. I've got a couple of comments to go and then we'll call it a night. Let you guys talk there. All right, Sean. I think Tim could beat Denzel Bentley, the WBO champ. He's no world beater. I think he's weaker champ than Lara. Yeah, good point, Sean. Possibly. Again, I'll reiterate what I was saying about Erislandy Lara. Don't just look at him as a 42 or 43-year-old guy. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of wars. As I said earlier, hasn't been overly active. He's looked after himself. He might be 42, but he's probably equivalent to 32. So he's probably the more dangerous guy. And Bentley, yeah, definitely no world beater, mate. So I think he's definitely a fighter that Tim could beat. What do we got there? Tim can definitely beat Bentley. He was KO'd by Felix Cash and outboxed by Nathan Heaney. When was that? Was that about 2 or 3 years ago, Batman? I think the Heaney fight was. Or Heaney, whatever his name is. Zuffa sucks more than Canelo. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else think Callum? Oh, yeah, I was waiting for this one. Anyone else thinks that Callum Peters beats Tim right now? I've got a few people ask me that. Possibly. I don't know. It'll never happen, of course, because Tim's going this way and Callum will stay that way. There's no way that No Limit would match them together, so it's probably pointless talking about it. But hey, I think he'd give him a good fight even after 7 or 8 fights, whatever he's had. Zoo versus Eubank in Australia. Australia versus UK, 2 huge names. Both are literally known by every casual in their respective nations. Easy win for Tim if it was to happen. Yeah, I agree there, Batman. I think Tim wins that fight very easily. But, yep, as Glenn says, he's not making 160 anytime soon. At one point it would have been fireworks when Eubank still had his hand speed back in like 2020. Yeah, but unfortunately it's 2026 at the moment now. So at this time, so it's a shame. Eubank Jr. was a telephone box fighter, then changed when switching to Roy Jones. Did he become a better or worse fighter? I think he went backwards, Peter. I think when he went to Roy Jones, I think he tried to fight like Roy Jones, and he's not. I mean, who can fight like Roy Jones Jr.? Eubank had his own style. I just think he ended up confusing himself in the end by trying to be Roy Jones Jr. So, and no surprise they parted ways. So, guys, we're a couple of minutes past 9, so we're going to leave it at that for tonight. It's been a big week. A lot of shows we've done, and they'll continue. Don't worry about that. I'm going to try and line up Noonan Boy for Wednesday night. I'll return his message now so we can line up. And, of course, every day on Walking Boxing as well. So until next week, guys, have a good one, and we'll catch you next time.